episode of Anavarna. My name is Ananya Bharadwaj.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon to you, ma'am.
Rabindranath Tagore once said, "You can't cross the sea by merely standing and staring at the water." Today, we have a particular someone who has lived this quote. On this note, I'd like to introduce our viewers to Commander Adimulam Chinnaveriya, who is a Narsena Medal and was awarded with the Yudh Seva Medal for high degree of distinguished service in times of war. Welcome, sir. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am a Commodore, that is equivalent to a brigadier in the army, Adimulam Chinnaveriya. I hail from an agricultural family in East Godavari district of Andhra Pradesh. Graduated from Rajahmundry Government Arts College. Subsequently, I studied in Jabalpur University and joined the Indian Navy. After joining the Navy, I spent 33.5 years there. Subsequently, I did some tenure with Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam in BrahMos, who is the mentor of BrahMos, as a general manager, HR and trials team. That is the background. I stay in Visakhapatnam. Now I do little bit of social work of running a trust as a joint secretary, then also executive vice president of Kanchikamakota Peetam Temple Trust. So my wife is a double graduate and she is the backbone of mine, and I have two sons. Elder son is an engineer, younger son is a doctor. This is what is my background.
That's nice, sir. So, what led you to the decision of joining the Indian Navy, sir?
That is actually, I was in the college when late Lal Bahadur Shastri visited there. He used a slogan, Jai Jawan and Jai Kisan. Since I was already a Jai Kisan, I was inspired by his speeches. I should join the services. Then I become Jai Jawan. Now I am Jai Jawan and Jai Kisan together. Then moreover, I was in NCC infantry, attended many places in the army sector. Then I realized my parents won't allow me to join the army because in the South army means that fellow is gone. Then I realized that Navy is all around the South. I will be able to join Navy and serve the nation. Thus, I joined the Navy.
Everyone of our generation has only heard or studied about war. But unlike all of us, sir, you fought one, the mighty Indo-Pakistan War. What was that like?
A war is not a small game or a event what generally people see in the media or the press, or you come across saying the war. War is not that easy. War has to be prepared months before in their planning, forecast and preparation. After that, you have to go for execution. The executioner is dependent upon the executive order given by the Supreme Commander, President of India. After that only they go into the war. But the moment you go into the war, the results are not in your hand. Because in the Navy, you are not seeing any enemy there. Because you are seeing only water, water, water. And you do not know who is underneath. A submarine which is underneath is not seen. You have to only search for that submarine. I was in a ship, luckily, during that time, which was a part of hunter-killer mission. And we can detect the submarine and destroy the submarine. And we have anti-aircraft guns, which we can use against the aircrafts. But we didn't have any surface weapons. We had other ships nearby. And we had gone into the war in 1971, and we were there in the war zone for 17 days, 17 days. That was a remarkable time where We did not even sleep for more than an hour in a day. 23 hours minimum we were awake. That was the situation of that time. Yeah.
That sounds very amazing. So it feels very unreal for somebody from our generation to even imagine. Out of the numerous times that you've commanded ships, which one brought you the most learning and why was it?
I would like to also go into the little bit more about the war. War always is not a easy thing. It leaves a lot of things. In the war scenario, you see the people who are actually not brave enough. Some are brave enough, some are not brave enough. In a ship, you have 200 to 300 people, out of which the commanding officer has to see that everybody is prepared. There it is like each and every one has to contribute. Like suppose a weapon is to be loaded, a cook, a steward, and a topaz who are not professionals, they are also are brought up and they load the weapons and they fire the salvos. And during that time, you can see all the married people are wearing the life belts and they are so scared that what will happen. All the bachelor guys and middle-aged fellows, they all are ready to see the war. But in the naval environment, first enemy is the sea. The sea is always not flat, what you see on the shores. It is highly rough and you will also face winds, cross currents, everything you will face. The commanding officer has to see the ship is gone into the area and you fight the war by hit first, hit hard is the golden rule which we follow. Before enemy could fire, we fire and we fight. That is where actually in the service you will have 90% of people, they are brave. They take the challenge after the training. Initially they may be little not so brave. After the training of 1 year, they become totally brave. Yeah, please go ahead. You asked about the ships. The ships I commanded, it is unlike in the army. Army, you have the regiment, you go with it. Whereas in the Navy, we have varieties of ships. One such ship is INS Balsar, which was a minesweeper. I had the fortune of making a new Indian minesweeping doctrine and also contributed in DRDO trials of depth charges and parachutes. The second one is the Androth is another ship which I contributed in the development of Indian-built torpedoes, which are used for destroying the ships and the submarines, and also the varieties of trials done by the NSTL in Visakhapatnam. Then the refit, we got it done up within 1.5 years ahead of schedule, which was generally used to take place in Russia, whereas in Vizag dockyard, I got it done. That was one credit which has been accredited to me. Then there was another ship, Guldar, I commanded in Indian Peacekeeping Force operations in Sri Lanka. There, a very interesting thing has happened. I went to Batticaloa to offload the Indian Army troops. There, the Tamilians were waiting outside. That is the Tamil Tigers, which I was not knowing. Because the person who was with me, he said their troops are there. So we beached. We were about to go outside. Suddenly we saw their dresses are different and the people are slightly different. Fortunately, since I had a fellow who could speak Tamil fluently, Tamilian, he spoke in Tamil to them, saying that, no, see, there is some problem ship is having. We will just pull back and come back and unload everything here. So the LTTE people, they kept quiet. We pulled back, pulled at full speed and ran away from there. Otherwise, my ship and all of us would have been there in Batticaloa today. So then the other one very interesting in that ship was, it has taken part in the IPKF operations of supporting role for shifting the troops, stores, everything from Madras to Trincomalee, Kankesanturai, Batticaloa, all three places. Successfully for 18 months, we have done. When one of the times I had my engines failure, both the engines failed when I was entering Madras Harbor. And I dropped my anchors and took the ropes by the boys. My divers jumped into the sea, pulled the ropes, I gave it to the jetty and went alongside. It was a deliberate attempt. It was a very daring and dashing occasion, which is a memory which I always cherish, that I could do it during that time. Otherwise, it would have been a disaster. Yeah, please go ahead.
All this sounds very spontaneous and extremely courageous. I'm so glad to be hearing these stories. War always brings us a sense of uncertainty with a dash of anxiety, not knowing where it's going to lead to, and surely brings every individual fear of life. During such a time, what would you say is the most important thing to do? How did you come through?
It is always the devotion and dedication to the nation, which is always at the backside of our mind. We always think about the nation first. Jai Bharat, Bharat Mata Mahan. And we are there to protect our nation. This is always at the back of our mind. And we always motivate our boys in that line. And we see to it that nobody suffers at any stage in his promotions, in his elevations, or his family side, and the family's medical side or the legal side. Everything we look after their welfare so that they are mentally and physically free from all the hurdles. That's how we see to it during our lifetime. We contribute towards the national goal. It is only purely on the national goal, and we take a lot of pride in that. That is the way we run it. The honesty, loyalty, integrity, these are the perpetual things which are inside the body. It should always come. These are one of the leadership qualities which every officer has to have and also exhibit in times of war.
So, what was it like to train in the Indian Navy? It must have been a totally demanding task. How did you train?
Yes.
And what were the toughest parts?
Madam, training the Indian Navy sailors, I was entrusted with the job for almost 4 years. During that time, initially I was training commander. Then also subsequently I have become the training captain of the major establishment, whereby we used to churn out 2,000 trainees per quarter. In 3 quarters, we used to, in an annual turnover of 6,000 sailors have been turned out and sent to further training to various establishments. Here, very, very important thing which happens there is, the boys all over India, they come there, they are not used to this sort of living because they are under their mother, sisters, brothers, and happy going. And they think that they did not study anything and come and enjoy a job and become the naval person. Whereas the moment he comes here, everything gets shattered because here the routine is different, the food is different. In the morning, they get bread, dal, eggs for eating breakfast, or puri, chana. So something like that is different. Whereas a South Indian would like to have rice. North Indian would like to have chapati or paratha. So it is like that. Everybody is a different fellow. Lunch, purposefully, it is the rice and vegetable, non-veg, everything will be served. Whereas all North Indians, they only like chapati and paratha, which we will not be able to give. Evening, bread, dal, or chapatis. With this, there is a big problem of the trainees when they come there. They would like to run away. Firstly, they will report sick, and some of the people will run away through the fencing. They attempt to do that. For that, we have to do the counseling, see that they are not demotivated, they are motivated to stay inside, and give them a pep talk and remain with them while they are taking food, because here they have to take with spoon and fork, and they cannot use their hands what they use at home. Basically, why we are doing in the training establishment for this is when they go to a ship, there is no water available in the ship. Sea is around you, but there is no fresh water available. So people are by force required to use fork and spoon to eat their food. For that purpose, we have to train them to eat. And in the ship, we will not be able to cook chapatis and paratas in the morning because the number of cooks are very less. Whereas in the house, the mother or sister can cook for 4 people. Whereas for 200 people, we have only 4 or 5 cooks are only there to cook. How can they cook? In the morning, they can't cook. Morning 3 o'clock, they get up, they boil the water, make the rice, make dal and bread, butter jam and given to them for the breakfast and boiled eggs. Whereas at lunchtime, they prepare curry, either it is a fish, chicken or mutton, whatever it is there, they will cook and give it, and vegetables they give it. By evening, generally, weekly thrice they give chapatis. Because that is the time he has got time till 6 o'clock in the evening. They will prepare and do it. So whereas these boys, they think that mother used to give for only 2 people, is not understanding that a mass is to be given. That is the area where main problem comes in the training. Then the training is, it is very hard training. It is not easy going. Morning, 4 o'clock they have to get up, 5 o'clock PT, 6 o'clock swimming and sailing. Then thereafter, 7 o'clock, they have to come for fall-in. And after the breakfast, 6:30 to 7 is breakfast. 7 o'clock, they have to come for a parade training. Then the classroom training. 12:30, they go for food. 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, they take rest. 2:30, again, they have to go for various activities. And evening, 6 to 8, they have to study. 8 to 9, they have to polish their shoes, prepare their clothes, everything for the next day. And 9 o'clock, it is, we call it pipe down. They have to switch off all lights and go to bed. So this is the life which they have to deal during the training. This is the biggest problem. There we have to keep their morale high by keeping some, in between some entertainment programs. Sometimes we send them for pictures by rotation, send them to visits to Puri, Konark, Bhubaneswar in shifts every Sunday for keeping them abreast with the local other people. And also we teach them all the things through the improvised training aids. During that time, there are no training aids like what we have got today. Those days, we ourselves have made the audio tapes, showed them, and surely we have made them understand things. That's how we have done with the training. Training is a very Herculean task. Once they are passed out from there, they are ready to take on the professional training. We don't give professional training. We basically, we convert from a Dula to a daughter-in-law. So Dula to daughter-in-law, it takes a long time for us to see that the transformation is taken place. Yeah, next.
So that sounds very hectic and very scheduled program. So what are the few things that they should really give up when they're in the Navy?
The
Sacrifices they
people
should
who
make.
come there, their motto of joining the service, they should keep always in their mind. Because the first instance, what we see that they have taken an oath. Oath is that they will protect the nation at the peril. That means they are ready to sacrifice themselves for the nation. So they are being trained in that fashion to bear the hardship, and they are ready to take the bullets in times of war. Even in peacetime, like natural calamities, they are there in the forefront, unlike any other person who would like to run away. He will come and defend the nation and our brethren. This is what the challenges they take. And in the training, we tell them by various motivational lectures, giving some inputs from various corners, so that they understand what is their role and what is the most important thing, because they are also aware certain privileges are given for the service people. One is he is given protection from arrest. Nobody in the services can be arrested. Nobody can be taken to court unless he is involved in rape, murder, culpable homicide. Only three sides. And there is nobody can arrest him for any debt. They are not supposed to take any debt. If somebody has given money, they are protected. Their properties at home are protected by the government, government of India and government, state governments. Then his whole property plus mobile, immobile properties are protected by the government. These are all things which we teach them, tell them what is the privilege of being in the service than to the outsiders. See, any civil claim or the criminal claim which is there towards anybody raising against him, that will be attended by the government. These are the things which join them for in the motivation of the sailors. Yeah.
Tell us about your privileged experience to meet the missile man himself, APJ Abdul Kalam sir. What were the most treasured learnings from him?
Madam, it is a God-given gift for me, I always tell the people. That is, I was in a project called DMD, that is in the ATV project, Advanced Technology Vessel Project at Secunderabad. He was the scientific advisor to the government. He first visited. When I saw him and got introduced to him, the person with a small personality, I am 6-footer, is only 5'2". You see the difference. You see him, suddenly it is like some Gautama Buddha is standing in front of you to change your thinking and your vision and anything, whatever you call it. That person has got something different of many of the people. A very lively personality, a small chair on his face, and a very sober, soft-spoken personality. The moment you say your name, he shake hands and he says, Mr. Chinnaveriya, nice to see you in this place. That one thing which just touches your heart to any place. So then subsequently, I had the fortune of being a general manager of the nuclear submarine project. After these two, then I joined under his baby, BrahMos cruise missile, which he is the pioneer of that weapon. And I was in the training and the trial team. See, what is very, very interesting for me is to work under his guidance was he is highly dedicated, honest, determined, simple, visionary. He always have something to say. Well, gentlemen, we always should look for a mission and vision. These are the two subjects, his pet subject, mission and vision. That means you have to think about something and you have to have a long vision, not 2 days. Sleeping time is only from 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock. We have to learn many things from him. He always says that train your children all over the place. Go and give lectures to them. And if you take 1,000 children, when I use the word boys, it is boys and girls. When I take 1,000, it has got 3 zeros. In the zeros, suppose, one zero falls, you are still better off. 100 people have understood what you are trying to explain to them. In the second one, you drop the second zero, at least you got 10. Out of 1,000, you got 10. Good achievement. Suppose you still fail because of your inefficiency, inaccuracy, whatever you call it. See, that zero is also fallen. But you are left with 1. That 1 is sufficient for us. So in India, if 1 also has turned out because of your motivational capability, if you can make them understand, then you have achieved in life. This is what he used to advocate and advise us, which we have been trying to tell many people and bring them at par. And the man, India has lost a person who was a mantle for the future. Yeah.
So our last question for today would be, what would you say to all the young Indians aspiring to be a part of the mighty Indian Navy? A piece of advice for those who choose your path. A lot of people do aspire to take up this profession, but often they dread if they have what it takes. What would you say a few qualities would be that they must possess to fit into this profession?
I would only advise and tell them is mainly that any profession is a profession, but any profession is not a business. See, this profession is a business dealing with the national security. National security is not policing. You cannot get money coming from sides into your pockets. You will only get into the pay bill, but your growth is in a vertical line. To grow into any stage you can grow. There is no bar, like, a LDC, lower division clerk in a civil life, continues for 20 years. A constable remains constable for 20 years. It is not like that. Once you join, if you are very good, you will grow up to the rank of a captain. You join as a sailor, you become to the rank of a captain. You can achieve up to there. There is no bar. And the system is fairly well. It is 95% foolproof. There is nothing, there is no caste, color, creed. Say, this chap is, say, Chettiar, this chap is so-and-so, Gondappa, this chap is Nayar, Pille, nothing is there, or Naidu. Here, everybody is only recognized, but Indian naval personnel. There he will grow up in his career very well. What is required for him is, one is he should have the qualities to be a patriot towards the nation. Very, very important. He has to be honest, sincere, disciplined, dedicated, and he should not have anything that, say, okay, I will join here, I can enjoy, go around abroad. When I go to England, I'll abort there, go somewhere else, stay there. These sort of ill ideas, ill thoughts cannot be there. It has to be only totally you are prepared for the sacrifice, supreme sacrifice to the nation. So nation will look after you. At any stage, nation will not ditch you and the services will not ditch you. And the people, it is a challenge. It is, you can go around as a common person who cannot visit the world. In the Navy, you can visit the world, whether you like it or not. In anybody's life, if he stays for about 20-25 years, I stayed 33 years, I have visited so many places, Mauritius, Seychelles, Sri Lanka, Indonesia. So, Laccadives, Minicoys, Andaman Nicobars, which otherwise I would not have gone there. So, there are so many chances. There are so many, my colleagues have gone to round the globe. because there the opportunity one may get, one may not get, but still the person who have not got, I already got some couple of other places to go. This is how you will enjoy yourself, and you have good camaraderie. Even after retirement, people who worked with me 30 years back, they call me and say, how are you, sir? In the pandemic, they are asking me. So this is what you will build up your camaraderie, which is a much binding camaraderie than your close relations and local friends. It is a very humble, noble profession, and you should take pride in joining, and it will contribute to the national defense, and you will be the beneficiary. You will get a lot of benefits after your post-retirement. You will get bank jobs, you get the other central government jobs, then state government jobs, excise, CSF, so many areas you get again job. Then steel plant, all public sector undertakings, private owned things like Reliance has given for so many people who are working there. So it is a better opportunity for you to join the service and see the world. Join the Navy, see the world. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much, sir. It's been an honor to speak with you, to listen to your experience. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you. Okay.
It was our
Thank
pleasure.
you. Very kind of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very kind of you. Thank you. Bye.